My first grade, if I tell you, I carried the little red pocketbook, went to school for reciting the leader's writing, and all the teachers were being taught and educated by communists.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in. All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into yet another episode of the Freedom Point. I have an amazing guest with me today, Chi Dong. Chi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having this conversation. Chi is a self-made entrepreneur, certified financial educator, and leadership coach on a mission to get this, to end financial illiteracy and help others build lives of purpose, freedom, and legacy. Chi, I can't think of a better bio than that. With that said, I would love for you to let our listening audience know a little bit more about Chi, what maybe your background, your journey, what you're focused on today, etc.
Well, it's a great pleasure and honor to be on your platform. I think immediately when I saw you on LinkedIn and you have the title Freedom, which is speaking to my soul, I said, I got to know this man. So I explored a little bit and we had a brief conversation, and that amount of energy alignment was just top of the chart. So yes, I'm ready to voice my word, voice my journey so the world can hear the inner voice in me that's been in my spirit for 60 years, my life. Okay. So very proud my journey and very grateful for everything has happened to my life. So I grew up in a country where right now the rest, especially Americans, are just puzzled by communist country back in the 60s, where I never felt poverty, although everybody was really, we call it eating from the same pot, drinking from the same hose, and everybody makes same amount of money, wearing the same amount of color clothes. And I'm not even kidding. And my mom used to cry, oh my God, she can't perm her hair. And just everybody was just same old straight haircut. And in my first grade, if I tell you, I carried the little red pocketbook. That's what I did. Went to school for reciting the leader's writing. We stood up in front of teacher reciting, and that was our journey of elementary school. And all the teachers were being taught and educated by communists. Those who were professionally trained and highly educated people were put in the labor camp to go through another journey of learning. Okay, so that was me. And for my entire younger age of my life, and part of me was living a joy life. I was peaceful. I thought it was that's life is about. But there's something always missing because I felt like I could not learn everything. Everything what I learned was, but whoever told me that was considered truth. Okay, and somehow, somewhere, I know something is missing. Okay, education was just not offered to me properly, and finally, college was open to me. And certainly, I was not prepared. I didn't have the proper education. We had to go through a very rigorous college entrance examination and 6 different subjects. And those who actually was able to really thrive are the ones that were raised by those educated family, by the grandparents raised, and those who the children were the parents of their kids. My generation, they were sent to the labor camp. So these kids were able to prosper and thrive very well. So that was early stage of my journey, realizing that education is not there. So I was not able to thrive because of that. And then I got put into a job, and it was considered a very prestigious job. I was actually picked because English was my major. believe me or not, I loved English, and since I was third grade. And one thing I want to share with the listeners, and your children, the journey you go to school, children really what you truly learn as a children is how the adults inspire the children. Okay, children once they're inspired inwardly, children will just go forward relentlessly pursuing that. I could never forget the two English teachers. And when I was maybe third or fourth grade, a little girl were pulled to their offices, and they were just amazingly handsome men. I still remember them, okay? And they pulled to my office, say, "You have a talent." I said, "Oh, okay. You have a language talent." I said, "What?" So that was all I needed it. Since then, I just always had this desire, like, how can I, improve the language skill? And my poor dad, I brag about him, and he actually sent me to this man who graduated from a university in England, and back then was very very rare. And he was in China, and he offered free classes every Sunday. I went there to his home, and he literally just tongue twisted us to learn every little pronunciation to be perfect. And so I'm grateful that there's people in your life that changed you, little things that kind of set you in the next journey of your life. And this part of the story I've never actually told anybody. So, so my journey was pretty long. I think overall, I was always searching for, what is it that I want? What is the truth? Okay, this is truly the journey. The first job, it shaped me another idea of not able to see myself in this prestigious huge European building 200 years where everybody was there doing the same old mundane thing, and they were back. And now people that were training me all in their 50 and 60. I said, okay, how can I see myself retire doing this boring thing every day? So that put me to another mindset. I got to move forward. I got to do something, and then that's how I landed in America, searching for the land of opportunity. Okay, and and then the quit first job after got to America, and I was told, oh, you gotta have security, you gotta have health insurance. All of that was put to my pressure. I was in my very early age. Certainly, I did whatever I was told that was considered right. So I took a job with the post office, and that was a second awakening call where most people at the job were talking about retirement. Most people are either alcoholic or drug addict. And I'm sorry to admit it, it's truth. And I was like, I can't see such a toxic relationship. I was absolutely miserable. And literally, I remembered I have a dear friend of mine who was 30 years senior than me, and listened to my cry. And he could never have done. He used to be in the post office for entire life. He was back there in the 60s. And I literally next day put in a 2 week resignation, shocked everybody, and walked away. And that was the journey of my entrepreneurship. I opened my first restaurant in 4 months. Okay, that's really my early stage of my life where I just always did things. First was getting out of the country in my early 20s, and then started my first restaurant in my right before I turned 30. And I tell people I jumped to the ocean where I don't know how deep it is, but you know what? Whatever reason, I always survived and thrived.
That makes sense. Yeah, Chi. First of all, I just want to say happy birthday. It's not too often that people volunteer their age on my podcast. So for sure, number one, happy birthday. Second to that, would love to learn a little bit more about, your time in the restaurant business. What were some of the most expensive lessons, that you learned, and how do you now use those lessons learned in your restaurant ownership days to help educate others?
Well, lessons I learned. That's a difficult questions. A lot. Um, I feel that restaurant gave me a sense of confidence and a boost of ego. I call it. You know, and I suddenly felt the American dream. I'm like, oh, that's American dream. Now I was able to, get into a nice house and nice cars, and everybody seemed around me were always like worshiping me, like, oh wow, she's so special, she's so successful. And that ego a boost gave me a little nice and I'll call dopamine boost for quite a while. And but during this journey, actually inside of me, and gradually, I realized I was not really happy. Okay. And I worked so hard, and especially the moment of right before 2008, I would say it started 2005 or 6. I already felt the pressure of financial crisis. And I just realized it just got harder and harder. Okay. And as I said, I always I've been invited to different events, and I said I realized when you learn about a business, but not knowing that there's another set of things you got to learn right away, which is investing money. And I was actually constantly learning. I bought tons of financial books, try to learn everything on myself, and I never felt like I was making money in the fund I was trying to invest in. And then in 2000, in the early 2000, I said, okay, let me dip into learning about real estate, right? I started leveraging equity and borrow against it, and purchased quite a lot of property all over the places. And then guess what happened in 2008? Market crash. And I'm like, okay, I had a lot of cash saved. I thought I have enough cash flow to support it. But think about it, business tanked, right? My monthly expenses were close to 30 grand. How long can I sustain? How long can I sustain? So I was living in a nightmare of quiet desperation. So that's another thing I learned. And then certainly, working with the employees who are not in alignment with your vision, and that was a huge struggle for me. So all of that you said about the struggle for me for the business, everything I'm struggling with, the most business owner can resonate. Cash flow, right? Liquidities, and dealing with staff that don't see, have the vision where you're going, right? And even your spouse, your business partners.
It makes total sense. And the big difference with you as opposed to maybe, others is that you are willing to take action steps. You are willing to fail forward, and you've learned from those. And now the decisions that you make today are largely a direct byproduct of some of those lessons that you learned, financially speaking, back during what I call the global financial crisis in 07, 08, 09. I would like to unpack something a little bit different here, and that is, tax strategy. Why is it that you think tax strategy is such an underutilized wealth building tool? And what's one tax tip that most people overlook?
Well, I just say, well, how much do you want to keep to yourself, right? And people that middle class, working class always say, well, they complain, and I don't believe in complaining. They complain, well, wealthy people pay the minimum taxes. And here's what I tell people is that, can you do something by complaining? No, it's not going to take you to the next journey. So the way you can accomplish by keeping more to yourself is learning the tools and strategies that wealthy people use. Simple as that. And so I help people uncover these secret tools, right? And I know that you're in the real estate, Jeremy. So real estate is an ideal tool for people in the early stage to accumulate wealth by leveraging other people's money. Absolutely, I 100% believe in that. But here's the next phase of life that people fail to realize, that okay, your real estate can be 1031 exchange forever, but who is going to be paying that tax burden one day? As I said, I recently met a gentleman who was, in the 70s and did real estate very well, have accumulated a huge amount of wealth. I said, great, great. I'm so proud of you. And I'm always happy to see successful people. Here's a challenge you're facing. Who's going to be paying your taxes eventually? And he paused for a minute and say, well, that's going to be my grandchildren's problem. So I said, well, there is a strategy that I could help you get out of it, and if you're open to explore. And here's a challenge for people that, and another thing, and I said, I'm extending out your question, that life is learning about money is complex. And I've been doing this. I've been in the business. I've been doing real estate. I've been now in the financial services for almost a decade. I've done a little bit everything where I'm able to see the pictures of everything, where I know it's not possible for people to learn everything once, but keep your mind open, and or surround yourself who are expert in other areas that you may not know. Okay. I always tell people the most dangerous word When I hear somebody say, I already know, I'm going to walk away from the person. He's not someone I want to spend my time with.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I would agree with you wholeheartedly.
I'm Zach Captainstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investor. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, you can go to our website and set up a call with our team.
Given your kind of background and your journey, what are some of the most common financial mistakes that you see, top income earners or entrepreneurs, making, and how would you help them proactively avoid, making those mistakes?
Yes, absolutely. Well, as I said, one is tax strategies, right? People who have learned, they may have done well in the investment in the stock market, and they have huge amount of money in the 401k. I said that's great, but how much of that money is yours when you retire, right? All of these harvested money throughout your career of your life, decades accumulated, millions of dollars, you're going to be subject to taxes. And then by the time you retire, Uncle Sam has a decision to make whether they need to raise taxes. So who is in control of your life-saving money? Not you, Uncle Sam. Okay. And then you're subject to minimum required distributions. And then plus, when you pass away, your children is going to pay the price, because there's also Secure Act where they have to exhaust all the money within the first 10 years. So how do you avoid that, right? There's a way to do it. So that's one way. And also same as people in the real estate business, how can you leverage other financial tool that can help you create more tax-free strategies? And people are not aware of it. There's another issue that I tell people that 85% of wealth in the last 5 years were being exhausted due to health crisis. So people don't leverage the proper financial tools such as insurance products to protect their wealth at a later age. So because I just feel that it's a wealth is, you got to think about short term, midterm, long term, not just today. Okay, and that's where the challenge facing most people, I feel.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I'd like to talk, most of our listening audience are real estate investors, right? Active, passive. But oftentimes I hear people say, well, I feel like I'm getting started too late, right? For that potential investor or that individual that feels like they're starting too late in life, right? What's one actionable move that individual can make today to begin building long-term wealth with confidence?
Number one, find somebody that could mentor you, that you're willing to be open heart and being mentored. And number two, definitely take action. Okay. And you got to spend time, quality time. I said, we're always busy. Okay. But where is your business spent at? There's something that's urgent, not important. There's something not urgent, but super important. Okay, learning about money is a life journey. I just say it's a similar. I love to use health. Okay, you're right now, you're 30s and 40s. Your body's all together. You're fine because you have the natural health body. By the time you turn late 40s and start have aching here, aching there, and you start paying a price, that's too late, right? You got to build this muscle of habit of learning, training your body. I think learning about financial investing and different types of investing, takes a muscle work and takes hard work, and it's not going to happen overnight. There's no get rich quick thing. Okay, you got to love to learn, enjoy the pain of learning, and eventually it become part of your life and your who you are.
Chi, what you just said was so powerful. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective. I also know that you speak often about aligning finances with purpose. How does somebody discover that purpose and then structure their financial plan around it?
Well, in our early years, right, we think that money is everything, right? Money is everything. And that was me too. I'm not trying to accuse nobody. I think our whole life is a journey of discovering who we are, why we're here, what is a purpose here, what do we want to be leaving behind, how do we want to be remembered. Okay. And I think my life is like I've lived many phases of life, and I lived several phases, and part of it is I raised two generations. I think I told you my oldest is 37 and my youngest 19, and they have taught me so much, and I just embrace raising children. So I learned that, that now I'm absolutely thinking very differently, and I feel like, others look like, oh, your children are successful, you're done. No, I'm literally starting to live a life so that I am using my life journey and example as a way to show my children what life should be, because they're going through what I went through, and they are not able to get it. They will eventually get it, but it's going to take journey. So I feel that that's what life is about. I love to surround myself with younger children, doesn't matter Gen Z or millennial, and just show my dream and show my passion and show my hope in life, and give instilled, wisdom to them, just embrace them, and I just pour my heart, and I think that's what my purpose is about.
Yeah, absolutely, and a huge part of your legacy as well. Chi, I know that fear of investing can be very common in today's world, especially in times of uncertainty, politically, geopolitically, in markets, right? Whether that be private markets or public markets. How do you guide people from fear to confidence when taking that first step in investing?
Incredible good question. Very, very true. Fear has been the major cause of everything. And I literally always use spirit as a way to guide people. I said, what does God wants to live? Joy, right? Now, and do you know that 70% of people's money are in the bank, earning hardly any return? On top of that, you still have to pay taxes at the end of the year. And I constantly am amazed. I literally just had a conversation with my cousin brother, and very successful in the business. I've been in for decades and have huge amount of money in the CDs. And I had another conversation with someone who is a college professor, highly reputable, highly educated, also have money in the CDs. I'm just saying the world is full of people that have no idea how money works. The way I tell people is simple rule 72. And I tell people, let me show you the rule 72. The inflation is going to already outpace your return in the CD. On top of that, you have to pay taxes. Are you willing to lose money every year? In order for you to keep up with inflation, your return need to be average at least 8 to 10%. Are you achieving that? Okay. How harder do you want to work for your money, or instead learning to make your money work for you? Okay. So I just wanted to use some basic concept to help people, allow them to open up their spirit. I really feel spirit is everything. I don't believe in using logic to guide people, and which is typical traditional financial advisors approach. And that's not my way. I'm all about spirit. But if I can't help that person, I would just say maybe you're not ready for us. So I have to be very transparently open to them.
Makes total sense. I'd like to talk about this kind of concept of scarcity and abundance, right? How does a scarcity mindset show up in everyday financial decisions, and what are some practical ways people can start shifting towards a mindset of abundance?
Well, I think first of all, starting with self love, you know, uh, if you look around, I think we focus so much on ourself in our early years. Where if you look around, we human are interconnected. Our spirits are same. And positive or scarcity is lack of love. Thinking that there's not enough resources, but it's literally money itself is just energy. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And I'm just right now, the new thing to me is I tell people that some people are afraid of the new technology, the new era, next 10, 20 years transition is cryptocurrency and AI. And I'm just so grateful that these technology are coming to us to make our life easier, where I tell people any new tools can always come with other parts of things that we have to deal with. Just like I went through the 2000 dot-com bubble, right, where I was at a younger age and I was kind of confused. I was not embracing the way I should have. But now I just look around like I'm embracing the new ways of doing things, and because I've seen the changes happen in the last decades, what have done to our human capacity and the wealth creation. We're going to create a lot more wealth in a new way, but we got to be open to learn and be willing to accept that the change is going to happen. How are you going to take it? Are you going to hide, run away, or you going to open, say, I'm going to learn, even though it's very uncomfortable? So that's, to me, is abundant mindset, is to be willing to accept that, okay, I acknowledge I don't know, I need to learn. Okay. And then by learning, then you're going to feel like, oh, it's not as bad. And then you're going to able to open a new way of life, that there's so much opportunities out there.
Yeah, Chi, it makes total sense. And I really appreciate your perspective there. What might be one or two different ways that our listeners can connect with you to learn more about what you're up to?
Well, I have a weekly webinar. I'll send you the link. Maybe you could, connect it and put a poster on your live. I'm doing a weekly webinar to introduce people about financial literacy and the different ways to earn also passive income by being part of our program and become a financial professional and educator, because the need for this industry are huge. Most financial professionals are in their late 50s, and including myself. So most of them will step out of this career in the next 10 years or so. And I've been doing this almost, as I said, almost 10 years. And I just realized how difficult it is just to learn and survive on top of that. And it's a constant learning. And I tell people that that it's not something that's easy. Okay, everybody can do it, but it's not easy, and survival rate is super low. But we're looking for people who have the desire to take ownership of your own financial future and help more people that's in need of our services.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Chi, I really appreciate the value that you brought our audience today.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for joining us. And listening audience, thank you for joining another episode of The Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.